Hi everyone. While we wait just another minute or two for everyone to join, Heather and I thought it'd be really interesting to run a quick poll on remote working. So I'm going to launch it now, and the poll is basically really relevant to what we're talking about today, and it's what's your biggest struggle with working remotely. So you can choose more than one. So if you just take a minute or two to let us know what you find you're struggling with, and I know for many of you this will be a new thing, so it'll be really interesting to see how you're finding it so far, and then we'll give you the results as we go through. Great, so I think we'll get started. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Charles Clark, and I'm thrilled to be joined by Heather Smith. Welcome, Heather.
Hey, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us.
And I thought, given today's topic, I couldn't think of anyone more well qualified and experienced than Heather. I'm based in New Zealand, and so we've just entered the lockdown last night. So I've been working from home for the grand total of 3 days. So I'm a bit of a newbie at it. Heather has obviously been working at home for some time, so I thought she could hold my hand and give me a few tips as we go through. So thanks so much for joining us, Heather. I know everyone will really appreciate your insights.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to the webinar, and please ask us questions as we go along. I've been working from home for about a decade now, and I've always really liked it. So hopefully can share some tips for you.
Cool. Well, I'll just end the poll just because the next slide here, we've actually got the results from a global poll that Buffer did last year with about 2,500 people. And I just thought it'd be really interesting to see how they compare to our results. I've just shared them with you now. And so the biggest one that you guys chose was distractions at home, which was quite interesting because on the Buffer one, that was sort of fourth ranked. So it'd be really interesting to see, you know, obviously maybe like us or like me, you're new to it. So we were sort of still bedding in. As opposed to sort of, you know, doing it for a long time. So maybe stay motivated, or sort of other elements would, you know, more like loneliness might be higher up there. So Heather, you've been doing it for so long. How did you find, you know, how do you keep motivated and sort of keep connected without being in an office all the time?
I really like what I do, and so motivation has never been a problem for me, but I do think currently we are under different circumstances and different times, and I do recognize that there is a different sort of anxiety and stress level going with working from home. Plus, so someone who is used to doing it, I'm feeling that sort of stress level happening, and also there's a lot more, there's a different type of noise happening in suburbia. So I normally have no noise, but I will be having school children, of course, coming home and making a lot more noise in the neighbourhood. So again, that's going to be a potential distraction that I deal with. But I enjoy my work, and I just love the flexibility that it gives me. And one of the big things which we'll talk about is I work to my energy levels. So I like to get up really early and we'll do work, but then we'll take breaks through the day and may finish early in the day.
Yeah, I think you're right. Finding the rhythm that works for you, I think, is important. And I think as more and more people's whole work teams are now working from home, we'll all have slightly different circumstances, slightly different working styles and habits. And so sort of understanding that and kind of making that work for these remote teams, I think will be something that, you know, we'll try and answer a few of those questions today, and hopefully you'll have questions for us as well. So as I said, I'm a newbie to working remotely. So it's all sort of something that I'm starting to bed in. So Heather came up with some really nice tips to basically, you know, if you are in that adjustment phase like I am, you know, what are some key tips, some sort of easy things that one can do to sort of make that transition, I suppose, easier, but also set yourself up for success in the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and this may be something that you're using at work as well. You were using in your office place as well. But one of the things I suggest is do work sprints, which means you aim to work for a focused period of time. And once that time has been reached, you take a break and move away from the computer and do something else. And so that might be a 10-minute work sprint, that might be a 25-minute work sprint, whatever works for you. And I use the Google stopwatch that you can find on the internet, and I put in the timer, and I run it like that. If I have activities that I don't necessarily need to use my brain power about, I will put on my Spotify playlist, and I'll play ABBA Dancing Queen, 4 minutes long, if I know the task is going to take me 4 minutes to do. And my focus is I need to get it done before that song finishes, otherwise it sits on repeat until I finish that task. The other way you can do that is I'll spell it out, otherwise it will start talking to me. You can use your ALEXA. You can probably say that, Charles, but mine will start talking to me if I say that.
That's Alexa for everyone.
So I've got actually both of them running simultaneously at home, and every time I set a timer on them, yeah, they'll remind me, okay, you need to take a physical break now. And by taking the break and moving away and doing something else, it re-energizes you to come back and focus, okay? Because there's no point, we know this, there's no point sitting at the desk for 4 hours with no clarity and no focus. And I know that I'm very highly motivated, highly focused, do a lot of work, but a couple of days ago, everything hit me, and I just, everything hurt. I couldn't think, and I just sort of basically didn't do a lot of work that day. But things are difficult at the moment. So, lean into that if that has to happen. Go and be kind on yourself and rest if that needs to happen. But here are some tools and techniques that you can use to stay focused at work.
And some really good ones that I've heard in the last sort of week or so are, just because you're at home, try not to sort of pretend that it's a day off. Do things like keep a routine, get up and put on some clothes that you might wear to work. Sort of do little things that actually put you in the mood. Because if you sort of stay in bed and sort of work from bed, I mean, it'll be impossible to sort of to keep it. But act like you are still in that work mode. Do have coffee breaks. Do sort of go for a walk if you can outside or run the garden. Do things that you would normally do in your work day. And, that routine, I'm sure, is really critical to being sustainably focused as you manage to be, Heather.
Yeah, and I think that will work for different types of people. So I'm completely fine if you want to be in your PJs in bed. But some people that won't work for, and some people that will work for. So I'm seeing that as well. And I think perhaps some of us people have been doing it from home a long time and just laughing. That's like, what? You get rest. You've not got this thing sorted.
No.
When I work from home, I save so much time in terms of I'm not doing the commute. I'm not worrying about the fancy clothes I need to wear. I'm not wasting money on fancy clothes, but obviously I do when I'm going out and need to be seen, and I get dressed for the webinars.
No, exactly.
You need to do what works for you, and I think that is coming across from the conversation here, is what works for you. If you need to get dressed, if you need to put some shoes on, do so. Yeah,
no, that's a great point. So we've built in a couple of these slides through every theme that we talk about. So if you do have questions, you can just put them into the chat feature in Zoom. We'll answer them as we go. We do have a couple of questions that people actually emailed through that we're addressing directly in the webinar. So don't be shy. Heather and I are happy to answer anything and everything that you've got. You may not have anything for this theme, so we'll keep on going, and hopefully they'll come up as we go. So this is my work from home setup. It is my, I'll say it's my office. It's pretty basic. I haven't had a lot of time to get it sorted. What I do have, though, I find really helpful is a laptop riser. I don't have two screens like some people do, so making sure I have that laptop riser which just puts it up at my eye level is really, really critical. It does help in terms of being stuck at a desk for a long time if you're looking straight ahead rather than down. other than that, I'm sure you recognize everything else. There's nothing probably that you guys aren't familiar with. But Heather's desk, on the other hand, really shows what a decade of getting your stuff sorted does for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got a lot of noise cancelling material around my desk. I've got lots of good lighting. So if you are doing webinars, see how I've got this great lighting on me, and that's from that strip you can see. That strip is like sellotape strip that you put up to give yourself lighting. And I'll highlight the most important thing on my desk is the little bell just in front of my keyboard, which is my dad's bell from his office, and I ring that when I get a new client.
So this might be, depending on what sort of where you are, big city versus a smaller town in terms of the level of internet speed that you do have. But for most of us working remotely, that really starts and ends with being able to access the internet. All of our files and sort of cloud sharing services are on there. So we just thought we'd spend a couple of minutes talking about the internet, and hopefully if you are having trouble with it, we've got a couple of tips that you might be able to use to improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing was, if you are finding yourself working from home, maybe consider contacting your internet provider and seeing if you can increase your access to increase the bandwidth, increase what you need, because this might be something that you need to consider realistically. And I know that I have really strong bandwidth. And that has continued on, even though we've sort of come into this unusual phase with a lot of people using the internet. But I know I can see other people out there in the community having issues. So maybe look to see what options are out there. Like, this might be something that solves a big bottleneck for you.
And another thing you might want to, or you might need to do, is to increase the amount of data limits that you have. So I know already I've been getting, just in the few days I've been at home, I've got 2 alerts from my provider saying that I've been bumped up into the higher tiers because now I'm suddenly working at home 8 hours a day, consuming a lot more data. So that might be something you might want to look at, because obviously you don't want to be holding, say, a webinar with a client and then you drop off because you've reached your cap. So definitely something to pay attention to.
I'm on unlimited data. So I'm on unlimited data, and what was it? My download speed was 94 Mbps and my upload's 36 Mbps. There are faster ones out there, but it is achievable in the suburbs. I'm in the suburbs of Brisbane.
And reliability is key, because there's nothing more frustrating than trying to watch, whether it's a webinar or training or collaborate with people, and someone's dropping out. It just makes, it's already a stressful situation working from home and trying to sort of maintain those relationships, and you definitely don't want to be having additional issues if you can, if you could do anything to avoid them. So you saw the hardware that I had, which was the most basic, sort of most of it I've just taken from my office at work. And so I'm sort of at the very beginning. What we have here is basically Heather's tried and trusted advice. If you want to sort of not worry about kind of deciding, looking at all the different options, I think, Heather, you've been using this material and this hardware for some time, and you've found it to be the best that you've used.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm encouraging a wireless headphone set, a microphone, and a wireless Logitech. No, it's not wireless, but a webcam. So I use a Logitech webcam, which gives you a lot of you can see it's good focus. I can change how wide it comes. I can change the color settings on it. So I think that gives you a lot of options when it comes to connecting with people. I recommend a really good quality chair. I use a Herman Miller Aeron chair. It has a 10-year guarantee. Good quality chair, good quality coffee. And I also recommend, which you're probably doing, you've got something in place, but the Seagate Backup Plus, which is just a little tiny unit which does a backup of your desktop. I believe in having everything in the cloud, But if you need to back up from the cloud, that can be slow. So you've got that double option happening there. And one of the most useful things I have, I don't know if I'll be able to show you in my screen. Oh, let's see if I can pull it out. Is this little cradle handset which you put your mobile phone in. And that I find really useful, both for recharging and as a docking station to recharge my phone, but as also I can just sort of take the phone calls and it's always standing up and ready for me to respond to.
And then also imagine you know exactly where your phone is every time, rather than the phone goes and you're reaching around your desk or sort of on the floor or wherever it might have got it. So just one of those little things that being sort of, it's a, you know, sort of a hygiene and order factor.
And to your image, I actually have 2 drones sitting in my office right now. Your image has 1 drone.
Yeah, I thought
you don't need a drone to work from home.
No, you don't. I did think about buying a drone the other day just so I could sort of poke my head up and see what was going on in sort of the lockdown New Zealand, but yeah, I didn't get around to it. They were all sold out. So we had a question before, which was about Microsoft Teams, which we will be talking about in a couple of minutes, but really great that you guys have obviously heard about it. It is definitely one of the ones that we'd recommend, and it is great because if you are running the Office 365, it does integrate directly into that. So Heather, you were saying that these are actually from your garden.
Oh, from my walk, photos from
from your walk, right?
Yeah. So we're talking about best ways to support your remote team, just a few suggestions here.
Yeah, and so, I mean, one of the key things, and definitely I know there might be some anxiousness, is that you've probably gone from quite a tight-knit office, if you are all working together, to suddenly everyone is no longer physically connected. And so what are some ways that you keep that and communication going without necessarily always having to pick up the phone or send an email? And just speaking to these, so we personally use Slack at BOMA massively. We use it both as a replacement in some ways for email, but we also just use it to structure our communication. So if we're talking about a specific project, we'll actually create a channel for that project, and then we know that everything in that channel is talking about that one project. So it's a really nice way of siloing specific, you know, projects, or it could be a client, or it could be a specific policy that you're working on, and then you know that anything on that subject is in there, and you don't sort of get the cross pollution that often can happen in the sort of wider messaging apps. And the other one is Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft Teams is a great product. It's basically a combination of, it's got video chats, it's got chat, you can upload and collaborate on documents in it. And it also, as I said, it integrates with Office 365. So it's a really nice piece of hardware from the guys at Microsoft. Unsurprisingly, they are kind of one of the very best at this. And Heather, you sent me a link to a 6-month free offer, which I've actually lost. So would you be able to share that in the chat for everyone?
In the chat group. Yeah. So currently, a lot of solutions are offering free or very low priced options to get on board with them. So Microsoft Teams is offering 6 months free to access it, and I'll put that in the chat. But also Slack, oh, why are you not letting me work? Also Slack, I think you can, depending on the size, actually use it for extensively, depending on the size of your team, quite freely. So there, you should get that now. Yeah, and I think, as you mentioned, it's really important to have clear communication, regular communication, checking in with people, but these are stressful times. So I appreciate there may be things going on with other team members and other staff members that you're not aware of. And just constantly, I'm here for you, etc. in terms of that communication and management of workflow.
And I think one of the things we did talk about earlier was, you know, Heather, you were saying that you like to get up very early in the morning, and to the point about people's sort of home lives, you know, they're probably, if they have kids, well, those kids will suddenly be at home. Their partner may also be at home. So suddenly, from being able to sort of come into work and focus in sort of in an office environment, they may have one or more kids at home who need to be kept busy and entertained, and their partner may be at home. And so, you know, I think we really have to be aware of, you know, people are adjusting to it. They may be struggling with it. You know, without doubt, I'm sure they will be doing the very best they can. You know, so it's not sort of necessarily a case of insisting on sort of 5-minute updates, but I suppose it's being aware of that difference and allowing people to work to their own timing, but as long as they deliver what it is that you as a business or their clients obviously need, because, you know, results are key, obviously, for everyone.
So here is an image of, for those of you not familiar, this is Spotify, which is a music streaming service. Now, you'll need to be aware of what your bandwidth like for you to use this. But what Amanda Newton from Xero did was she created a collaborative playlist, a community playlist. So you could do this for your own company, even if it's just a few people, your team members, set it up for your own group. You put in a few songs, but they can actually add their own songs. So you can see down the side underneath user, all the different people who have added. So me, Heather Smith's added, Leanne Berry's added, Don has added. And you kind of actually get to know what other people, the other type of musical taste other people like. So while you're not physically there with them, you're kind of connected with them through the songs that they're playing. And some people have some interesting musical tastes. I won't drop them in it. I added all the George Michael songs. I'll add. So this is using Zoom, ZOOM. Okay, and this is really important to sort of physically stay in contact with people while we're working remotely. So this is, again, Charles and I are using this to provide this webinar right now. But see what I've done here. I'm doing this every afternoon around 4 p.m. and everyone comes on and we physically see them, in like the Brady Bunch boxes happening there. So we can just decompress, but whatever you need to have. So I encourage you to consider looking at this. In fact, I think I have a subscription for it, but there are some quite light and cheap plans to actually access this. And you can run meetings like this and just touch in with them. I've seen Jimmy Webb from Link Accounting. He's actually put up one, and they're all kind of doing exercises in their Zoom meeting. So maybe your video can break for that one if they call you in for that one. But it's another way to keep in touch with people, check in with people during this time, share a joke, share a laughter, and see if we can all help one another.
Yeah, I think so we usually have team lunches every Wednesday where we all sort of go out to local restaurants and do that, and we often use it to have a bit of a catch up, but outside the office, sort of in a less formal way. And yesterday, because obviously we couldn't do that, but we were all on live video, and we were actually sort of sending each other photos of what we'd had for lunch. It's completely cheesy, you know, it is what it is. But, you know, when we had that sort of, we had that tradition almost, it was quite nice just to say, okay, well, we're not in the office, but we'll just sort of share that little tradition that we always have, just to kind of connect us back with that sort of working all together that we used to have. Yeah,
that's lovely. I kind of wouldn't necessarily want to eat in front of people on the video.
No. It was definitely just take a photo and then upload it to Slack or to the chat.
and I referred to these as drinking tea and a natter. So I was like, okay, you can drink tea without it looking bad.
Yeah, but you're right. That definitely that probably is the limit of what you want to be doing in terms of consuming anything.
Absolutely. Hey, I wanted to, this is something that I think is causing a lot of concern, and I really wanted to touch base on security. So if you are working remotely, someone in the office probably the IT or your IT support desk need to ensure that you do have security in place over everything. There's a number of options here, but especially if you're using a home computer to log into the remote office or online, etc., multiple people may be using that computer. So one of the options there is Practice Protect, which sort of puts a bubble over everyone's computer, and you kind of log in and then log out, and everything stays in that particular workspace. And it's also tagged to an IP address, like a geographical location. So that gives everyone visibility over what's happening in security. LastPass is a password management solution if you're using passwords, multiple passwords. AdBlock to stop, if you're going on the internet on your home computer, to stop anything untoward coming through. And ESET's sort of a subscription security package for your computer. So I wanted to give you a few ideas. I think you should talk to your IT provider about this, but make sure at a full practice level you've got that security in place that you need for this new environment that we're working in.
And just, I just wanted to answer quickly one question because it just relates to Microsoft Teams. Excuse me. So Bridget asked, just in terms of notifications and sort of turning them on, most of the browsers or softwares will have a preferences where you can switch notifications on or off. If it's not in there, then you might need to switch it on in your system. So in a Mac, that would be in the notifications tab in your system preferences. I'm not sure what it would be on a Windows, but probably look, the easiest way, if neither of those are working for you, they all will have help. So you can either or they'll have a something that should give you the answer that you're needing for in terms of those notifications. So this visibility over productivity was actually a question that someone sent through, and it was I suppose around the anxiety of being sort of the leader of a practice and having sort of people going out and then working remotely, and just that sort of anxiousness around, you know, are they still going to be producing, and not wanting to disappoint clients, and obviously because it's a very new situation, it's a change. And so Heather and I were sort of thinking about this, and our best advice was really, given that it's a new way of working, people's home environments are different, it's really sort of about, at the first stage, having that communication and sort of check-ins, rather than sort of necessarily specifying that they have to sort of do X and Y. And I think, Heather, you quite strongly felt that it was that visibility and sort of expectations was really important, rather than sort of, you know, clocking in and clocking out.
Well, you do have your various time tracking tools out there that will work for some people that you can utilize, but it may be that you want to focus on results orientated work and outcomes and that are achieved. As per, we talked about communication, have those really clear communications. Alison Jordan from NITO suggested having a daily 15-minute stand-up, which would probably happen over Zoom, to talk about what your plans are, or what your plans are going forward, what you've achieved for the day, etc. So you kind of have that visible ownership with everyone in the team, depending on how you work, etc. But maybe focus on that results orientated work, because people are working kind of different ways. A lot of people have come back and said that they're finding their remote teams, like I speak to hundreds of accountants all the time, and a lot of them are saying they're actually finding they're actually being far more productive than they were in the past, which again is a little bit concerning, because maybe they need to pull back and focus on realizing they don't need to work extensive hours. They should sort of be still sort of working the hours they need to work. But yeah, hopefully that gives you a few things to think about in terms of having that visibility and connecting with your team. But what we did mention, like you've got your Minute Dot, your Workflow Max, your Asana, Carbon, Jetpack, Workflow, Trello, and the Microsoft Teams to assist with that workflow management.
One thing that we have when we're sort of on a sprint with BOMA is people might just check in once a day in the morning, especially in our development team, and they might just sort of say, what am I working on today? And they might just sort of note down 3 or 4 things. And it's just an easy way without necessarily, if people ask, push for time, they don't necessarily have to even, have that sort of, that time to sort of speak to each other, but they could just say, look, these are the things I'm working on. Everyone as a team then is up to date and aware of what's going on. And obviously if there's people are sort of working across teams, then they'll know that they need to support various people if they're sort of working on the same topics. So supporting clients, I know that this for a lot of people is really, really important, because just as we're all working from home, everyone's client's going to be working from home as well. And not only that, but it is, the world for the moment has changed, and a lot of small businesses are in a very different position than they were a month ago. And so the stress and strain on those businesses and the owners will just be massive. And so, in some ways, aren't we lucky that accountants and bookkeepers are able then to help these people? And I suppose here Heather's just got a few ideas as to how, in practice, what we could be doing to facilitate that.
Yeah, so this was using Loom, Loom. And so I wanted you visually to look at what it looks like. I'm just shooting Charles an email. I've created a video to send him, and all I need to do is drop the hyperlink of that video in there, how accountants and bookkeepers can use Loom to quickly connect with clients. And I've just gone, hi, bam, drop the video in. And you can see that's visually simple to watch. And if you go to, I think we're going to try and go to the next slide and see if we can play it. So you can see physically, are you able to click on it and play that? See if it works?
Yeah, it's...
Oh, and we're going to get volume. Okay, doesn't look like we're getting volume from it. Okay, so what I'm saying is... Oh,
sorry, I just stop it. Yeah.
What I'm saying is a lot of accountants and bookkeepers at the moment are telling me they're spending a lot of time on the phone speaking to clients who are very worried. So one of the things that you can do is every morning, depending on what you want to do, maybe every couple or few mornings, sit down with your client list and make them a quick 90-second video using Loom to let them know of anything they should be concerned about them, ask them how they're doing, let them know how you're doing, and shoot it out there. Send it in an email like that. And very quickly, like potentially within an hour, you can get a video out to all of your client base. So that's a quick way to touch base with them, and they can then watch it when they have capacity and the headspace to watch it and respond to you as they need to, because it may be that they don't need to speak to you right now. It may be that we need to settle down and work out what the final options are to speak to you about. The second thing is you may want to look at your client list and sort them by industry or business type, and then make a longer video, a Loom video, and it's free at the moment. It's free, I think, for the next few months. It's free. Make your Loom video and explain to, say, the sole traders, okay, this is what the sole traders need to do. So send them the 90-second video, and then send the relevant people a bit more in-depth video, again, saving you a massive amount of time, getting your message, contacting them, connecting with them, and then potentially the next meeting you have will be more in depth. I have accountants telling me the same client is calling them up 6 times a day, and this is very time consuming at the moment. And while the telephone is good, this maybe can save you a few hours to get people to the second or third level that they need to get to in terms of support.
And Heather, you also said some accountants have taken a leaf out of your book with your sort of afternoon chats. And
yeah.
So again, they could also sort of every afternoon or morning at a specific time go on and sort of have an Ask Me Anything and invite all their clients to join. And you know, what a fantastic way to scale your reach across, maybe instead of just one-to-one, but you could be one-to-many.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can be sure that if someone's asking a question, everyone else is probably thinking it.
Absolutely. So that was using Zoom, so the Zoom group chat, because a lot of accountants and bookkeepers are currently having the conversation, should I be charging for this? Which, you know, it is a conversation and there will be various different opinions on that. But if, say, you're putting these short little videos together, and if, say, you're putting an hour long, come and talk to me at 4 p.m. this afternoon and ask me any questions, and I'll sit on the line and answer them all, but they'll be generic and everyone will be watching. You can go, okay, I'm offering that to you as a free value add. And if you need to book a meeting with me, then I can charge you for that. So maybe depending, you know, how you charge people is your business. But that may be something that works into your balance of helping people who really need help at the moment, while supporting people, while moving them to what we need to do with you.
That's a really nice idea. And so what we've got here are basically just some tools that Heather and I use in terms of to help, I suppose, collect and disseminate information. So I haven't used Gravity Forms yet, Heather, so maybe you can speak to that.
Okay, so Gravity Forms is just a simple way to collect information from your, say maybe you've got a new client, you collect all their information on Gravity Forms, and then you can populate it into various different areas. I think I use Zapier to then push all of that data into zero contact area for me. And Google Forms is similar. I use Google Forms to maybe if I'm collecting opinions from people on what I should be doing and how I should be supporting them, I can just put out a simple Google Forms and shoot it out to people, and they can respond, and I can see their responses and collate them quite easily.
And then we were talking about Miro earlier, which we use, and you were saying that Google Jamboard is similar, is that correct?
Yeah, it's just a similar type of whiteboard concept. Like you've got there, like the image thing that you've got there.
So a really nice way, you know, of course, you know, we now can't be working face to face with our colleagues, but you might have a project or a nutty problem which really would benefit from that sort of whiteboarding experience. So Google Jamboard and Miro just enable you to collaborate online and sort of draw, free associate, input images, graphs, whatever makes sense to you to sort of to work through that problem. And even better, you could always do that with a client. Say if they had a particular issue that would benefit from this sort of thing. And the nice thing is that, you know, they can be at their home, you can be at yours, and you can bring in any other colleagues that you might need to. And obviously they can bring any additional people from their business in that would benefit from the process. And then lastly, Calendly, just, you know, one of the best tools out there to set meetings.
Yeah, so you book in with via a link, and it checks your calendar for availability, and it books appointments in, and then it will automatically set reminders. And you can set up the Calendly so it can have 15-minute bookings or hour-long bookings. You can set up different booking parameters. So it may be for people that just need to have an initial call with you. You offer them a 15-minute booking link before moving them to something else.
So one of the things that we touched on earlier is the fact that, you know, we are all working from home, and if you've got kids, that is, you know, the big question of, you know, what do we do with them? How do we entertain them? If you're lucky, you might have teenage kids who are a little bit more able to entertain themselves. They might have homework.
Yeah, they're not easier.
Oh, really? I've got a 2-year-old, so he sort of is constantly requiring input. I was hoping it got easier.
That's what we just keep telling people. So I actually think Sam is on the webinar today. So shout out to Sam. But this is these are some screenshots from 2 people within the accounting industry. Sam on the left-hand side is actually an accountant by day and a ninja by night. And so what he's actually doing is offering, I think it's karate classes. I apologize if that's technically not the correct word, but you can get your kids to sign up for some of these online classes that are being run, that now people are actually having to run online. So you've got Sam's there that you can sign up for. You've got all the details there. And then on the right side, Ethan Kearney from Practice Ignition, his mum is offering piano tuition. So she's, you can see she's set herself up to offer piano tuition online. So again, look to see who is actually offering these sort of new services online. You know, if we've got a few weeks of this lockdown, maybe your kids can discover their music talents online, which is fantastic. And if you're interested in contacting either of those, let me know. And you can see here the next image here. This is what happened in my house the other day. My kids baked, my son baked us bread rolls he made amazing hamburgers. So we were looking at sort of all the different types of activities for the kids. And you can see I put them down on the left-hand side. We have a person here in Australia called Hamish and Andy. I think it was Andy said bonkers time. That was his suggestion on TV last night. Which was someone else will have to tell me which one it was. The one who has the children. He says bonkers time. So yeah, you can read whatever you want into bonkers time.
I like it. I like it. Also, there's a lot of, I suppose, authors and institutions are putting their content online. So David Williams, who does the children's books, all his books are now audio files. You can listen to them online for free. And there's a lot of museums and art galleries all around the world who are putting all their content on for free. And then also, so there's one called the Ashmolean, and every day, so my 2-year-old does this, we get a new image from the Ashmolean and then he draws it. So sort of one day it's a horse, another day it's a building.
Oh, what was that? Ashmolean?
If you're sort of stuck for things, the Ashmolean, it's a UK, it's a UK museum, and it was, my wife is British, and so it's one of her favorites, and so there are, and a lot of other institutions have taken their lead, and so whatever the favorite sort of gallery or museum that you live near to or overseas, they're probably doing something similar. So just a really nice way, they actually give you the content, and all you need to do is sort of put it in front of your kids, and then they can draw it, comment on it, like it, you know, learn about it.
Fantastic. And the other one there is audible.com is offering free range of children's books to access online. Oh, and the other thing I meant to mention was that Chris Hemsworth is offering his fitness app online for free. But if you want everyone to turn out looking like Chris Hemsworth at the end of this lockdown.
I'm just going to, that's a rhetorical question here, Rado. So we chose this particular image because the girl in this image is basically doing something which doesn't have a device and doesn't use any bandwidth. And definitely one of the things that my colleagues have if they occasionally work from home is the internet will drop out because someone's downloading a video or playing a game or things like that. And this is actually quite a serious thing, you know, if you do have maybe limited broadband and then suddenly all the kids are home and they're using it. So how do you negotiate and what do you offer in place of that sort of the online world, which, you know, they're obviously is pretty rich for them. So Heather, you had a few ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. So these were suggested to me by a few people. You can, via the router, restrict access to the bandwidth to other people in the house. You could go to, here in Australia, we've got Officeworks, but your stationery shop, and buy a Telstra or Optus prepaid dongle, so they can actually have their own Wi-Fi access. Or you could use something known, Stephen Leaney from Xero recommended to me, a Google Wi-Fi extender. And so you can actually use this Google Wi-Fi extender to turn on or off or limit the bandwidth in various areas. And he then told me he could connect. He actually has an app on his phone, so he could actually be at work and restrict their access. Well, he could technically now he couldn't be at work, but he could be maybe in the other area, other side of his house, and restrict their access. Yes.
And one thing I have heard from a psychologist who was on the radio this morning, they were talking about, and this really goes for sort of adults as well as kids, but they said, you know, during this sort of lockdown period, really one of the danger elements that psychologists see is spending too much time online, especially on social media. So he sort of said, try and limit it as much as you can, just because really, you know, children especially, they are hugely drawn to their peer group. But obviously through social media, it can be quite, you know, it's quite a tricky sort of world to navigate. And so he sort of said, look, limit as much as you can. There's a lot that they can be doing. Obviously, we know that's not practical all the time, but just something to keep an eye on during this period.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that really nicely leads into basically what we're all probably feeling, which is it's all a bit stressful, it's a bit overwhelming, and how are we going to get through this period? And I imagine an element of it is sort of be kind to yourself and take it a bit day by day. But there are things that I think we can be doing that Heather listed here to assist ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, a lot of us are told these things, so hopefully that we do know them, but it's actually applying them and getting up and actually doing them. So you're meditating, and there's a lot of different meditating options and apps and sites you can access. There's exercising. I know I'm getting up early. I'm getting up about 5. I always get up really early. So I go about 5 a.m. for a walk in our reserve. I'm very lucky to have a reserve. We're still allowed to walk in reserves. I'm not sure whether that's something you can do in where you are, Charles.
Yeah, we're able to, but just has to be in your local area. So sort of no driving off to the local park if it's kind of half an hour away.
Oh, blimey. Okay. But yeah, fortunately I can walk to one. Avoiding caffeine and stimulants. I use, let's see if I can lift it up. I have a infuser on my desk, which sends out calming oil smells. So that might be something, it's kind of like a ritual for me that I set it up, and that's part of my day to calm me down. And exactly what Charles was mentioning, avoid too much social media, avoid too much news. I'll go a step further and say, look, maybe make choices about what news that you are going to allow yourself to watch. So I will say what my choices are. It is World Health Organization. It's the government broadcaster, which for me is the ABC radio. And for me, I have a paid subscription because I believe that if you pay for your subscription, you have a better quality journalism, and I pay for The Guardian. So that's what I'm limiting myself to.
Yeah, no, sorry, I think that's very true. So same idea. I pay for the New York Times and a couple of other online ones, including The Economist, and also because I want to support the poor journalists out there who've had a pretty tough time the last few years. I mean, I definitely think, you know, if one's sort of on the sensationalist magazines or sort of newspapers, it can just be, it's sort of heartburn inducing. And the less we have of that during this time, I think the better. And we won't spend too much time on this page. It's in the workbook. So these links you can actually click directly through in the workbook. It is really, really important. You know, we all know that, well, often we don't know until it's too late, but we all know that people are struggling out there. So hopefully here are some ideas if you are, that you can maybe reach out to if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to a friend or a family member.
Yeah, absolutely. And the top one is quite an extensive PDF, which as a small business owner, it helps you, but also may help your small business clients, because we all need to get through this together. And we're not necessarily counsellors. We are in a position of being able to actively listen to people during the stressful times. So hopefully, but also take care of yourself, because if you're hearing all of the stories that are going on out there, it's very emotionally and physically draining for yourself as well. So look after yourself and look after yourself and try to provide sort of the support for those around you. And I have actually been thinking it might even be worth engaging a counsellor to just touch base with people, but I don't know whether that's viable for people.
Well, I do know a friend of mine is a counsellor, and he's actually doing his instead of face-to-face, he's actually using Zoom as well. So he's sort of offering that facility. So I think everyone is adjusting and sort of working in a new way. So I mean, funnily enough, you know, I think a lot of people where there used to have to be, or used to be face-to-face, are realizing that in certain circumstances, it's the connection and the communication which is the key thing, and that doesn't have to be through a physical meeting. It can just be through an online or a video or a phone call.
Absolutely.
So we didn't sort of have that many questions. I hope that's because we've been answering sort of all the pressing ones that you have had. We just thought the last thing we would share, because we've talked a lot about the tools that you can be using to help you in your remote work. And these are the tools that Heather and I use. So I live in Auckland and Heather is in Brisbane. So how did we basically in 4 days pull this together? So we use Google Docs and Slides, which is just another variation of the Microsoft Teams, but owned by Google. And so we're able to put ideas in there, put comments, put suggestions in, and sort of hash out this webinar. And then at the end, I put it into the PowerPoint for now. And then Heather, you love Snagit, I know as well.
Yeah. I use TechSmith products, both Camtasia and Snagit. So I have highlighted during the presentation cheap, quick solutions to use. But if I need longer, because as you may know, I write proper books and I create hour-long videos, and I'll use Snagit for proper processes and Camtasia for proper refined videos.
Pixels is also a fantastic resource if you're wanting some free images and if you don't want to pay for them. Are the other big paid options, and there are many. We use Adobe quite a lot as well. Both of them have fantastic search engines, so you can put in pretty much any topic, see what the options are there, and then you can also search for similar ones. So if you don't quite find the image you need on the first time, search for similar, and it will bring up ones that you know, that are similar to what you've seen.
And the color pick eyedropper is it sits on your Google Chrome bar. Visual presentations are really important to me, so I can use it to identify a color in an image and then make the font the same color.
So does it give you the it gives you the hex code or sort of the color? Yeah. No, much better than having to guess it or sort of as you say, if you do like visual presentations, sort of say, no, well, that's too bad, and just sort of having to stick with the kind of the generic colors in your presentation.
Absolutely.
Great. So so guys, thanks so much. We've reached the end of our time. If you do have any more questions, do shoot them through to obviously to Heather or I. We both got pretty active social presences, especially Heather individually, but also BOMA. Here to help you in any way that we can. We realize that, you know, it's not just about helping you today, but, you know, ongoing through this process, and hopefully, you know, afterwards, because look, we may all find that working from home isn't as scary as we thought, and maybe we want to do it a bit more and not going to the office so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Really, really great to have you join us.
Great. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care out there and be safe.